Right now, we have a situation where home prices in Florida continue to crash as foreign investors are starting to buy up more U.S. real estate again. So I want to dive into the details of both of these stories because they're both important and significant as it relates to us Americans and being able to afford a home. So many of you probably know that Florida has been ground zero for the housing crash. Prices have been coming down in Florida for a while now, but it's not just prices coming down, also the amount of properties that are actually being sold is going down as well. According to the Florida Realtors Association, home sales in Florida were down 2.8% year over year, while existing condo and townhouse sales were down 11.8% year over year as of the July numbers. Those are some pretty significant declines. Now, when it comes to prices in Florida, prices fell on both townhouses and single-family homes. Single-family home prices are down an additional 1.7% compared to a year ago, and condo and townhome prices are down 6.3% from a year ago. Here's what they have to say about this. Despite this being the fifth consecutive month we've seen year-over-year declines in statewide single-family home median prices, July marked the smallest drop in percentage terms among those months, and for the year overall, the single-family median price is also down by the same amount, 1.7%. So it doesn't appear that price declines are accelerating at a statewide level for single-family homes. Well, I guess that depends on which part of the state you are in, because that is absolutely not true depending on which part of Florida you live in. Here we have another quick flip. This house was bought back in 2023 for about $10 million, and now they're trying to sell it for about $11 million. Let's just make a quick $1,000,000. But good luck with that in a declining market. Starting to look more and more like Florida over here every day. But going back to what I was saying about Florida, if you live anywhere in Southwest Florida, you've likely seen median home prices fall much more than the statewide average, probably anywhere between 4 and 10% year over year. That's becoming the norm for many parts of Florida. Now, the condo prices are dropping faster than single-family home prices, which reinforces the idea that single-family homes are always going to be more desirable than condos, and I don't dispute that. However, a lot of people thought that, well, we better get out of the condo market and run to single-family homes because that's going to hold its value better, and we don't have to pay all these special assessments. We're not going to have to pay the HOA fees and all of this. But in reality, what's happening is single-family home prices are coming down, and the insurance costs to keep those homes is rising. The property taxes on those homes are rising, and the maintenance costs to maintain that single-family home is also on the rise. So this tactic of running from condos and escaping to a house isn't really working out the way a lot of people thought that it would. Supply in Florida also continues to explode, and we have 5.5 months of supply for single-family homes on the market, as well as 9.6 months of supply for condos and townhouses. So take your pick, guys. It's a buyer's market in Florida. It has been for a while, but it just continues to get there. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of states that didn't look like much was going to happen a year ago, but now things are starting to turn around, like here in California, are going to look a lot like Florida within the next year or so. It might not be as drastic because it usually never is, but it could be. You just don't know. And what the Florida market is reflecting is kind of what the future looks like for a lot of other parts of the country in terms of a lot more inventory than there was a couple years ago, combined with lower demand, which ultimately equals prices coming down. And don't be fooled by this narrative that the real estate industry keeps trying to spin that, well, if you can afford to buy right now, this is a great time to buy because mortgage rates came down a little bit, there's less competition, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? All of that's going to remain the case for quite some time because the prices, even as they stand, are far too high and most people can't afford them. So you can rest assured that anywhere prices are coming down right now, that prices will continue to come down for probably at least another year or two, if not longer. I would say the even bigger threat that you would have to worry about coming in and buying up the home of your dreams more than your neighbor across the street is foreign investors and foreign buyers. And the reason for this is because foreign investment is starting to pick back up again in the United States. Take a look at this chart right here. So far in 2025, we have seen foreign investors purchase about 70,000 US homes. And you can see that's an uptick from 2024 and about equal to where it was back in 2023. But of course, looking back throughout the prior decade, foreign investment in America was much higher than it is today. But the fact that it is having a resurgence is something that Americans should be worried about, because ultimately they are your competition. Now, foreign investors love buying in America because they look at it as the safest way to invest their money. They don't have to worry about a corrupt government stealing their home from them, or at least that's what they think, which I have a story about that later in the video. And they still view it as a good investment. And when I first read this, I'm thinking, why? Because as an investor myself, somebody who has invested in real estate in the past, I don't see many places these days where buying real estate is really a great deal, except for maybe some pockets of the Midwest. But guess what? That's exactly where all these foreigners are still buying real estate today. Take a look at this stat. Sales of existing U.S. real estate to non-U.S. citizens hit $56 billion this year through March, which is up 33% from the same period the year before. That's more than 78,000 existing properties sold to foreign buyers in that time frame. And this is with the current environment that we have right now, with not really ideal mortgage rates and prices still very close to all-time highs, especially when adjusted for inflation. Now, to be fair, foreign home purchases only account for about 2.5% of the U.S. real estate market. But at a time when so many Americans cannot afford real estate, it's a little bit of a slap in the face to Americans. You know, before, when real estate was abundant and, we just had millions and millions of homes for sale and things were plentiful, I don't see it as being a problem. But fast forward to today, when most Americans cannot afford a home, I'm not sure why there isn't sort of like a freeze on this, where we're just not allowing foreign investment, at least temporarily. The government likes to cry that there's a big housing shortage and we need to build all these homes. We're like 5 or 7 million homes short, so we're just not building enough homes. But yet they do nothing when it comes to letting people from other countries come in here and buy up our real estate. And here's what I mean about the Midwest example. Here's an Australian investor who bought 5 properties in Illinois and Missouri since 2023, even though he hasn't visited the US in about over 18 years. Meanwhile, this guy is sitting on his farm over in Russia, buying up US real estate and turning a profit over here. Now, I'm not against people making money or opportunity or turning profits, guys. But what do you notice here? These people are buying up properties in the least expensive areas of America, mainly the Midwest, because this is where it's the cheapest and this is where you're most likely to still be able to get a cash flowing property, meaning that after all your expenses are paid, you're going to be able to turn a decent profit. And that's even more so the case for foreign investors, as most of them usually pay cash. So if you don't have a mortgage, you're going to have more cash flowing real estate opportunities, especially in a place like the Midwest where prices are low and rents are on the rise. And I think everybody should be concerned about this, because I keep telling people that if you want to buy a house in America and you complain you can't afford it where you live right now, well, then you should look into moving somewhere to the Midwest, because it's the last place in the US that a lot of people could still afford. Well, that's not going to be the case very much longer if foreign investment continues to come back like this and they keep targeting the most affordable neighborhoods in America. It's bad enough you got to worry about BlackRock and Blackstone and Open Door and all the other Wall Street hedge funds buying up property in your neighborhood, and now you got to worry about foreign investors too, which they've always been on the radar. As you can see by the graph we showed earlier, it's not like this is a new thing. But what is new is how unaffordable housing has become. So if you're not happy with the situation, you should probably write your local congressman or congresswoman to try and do something about this, because this situation is going from bad to worse. And meanwhile, they just keep trying to tell everybody that, oh, the Fed's going to be cutting rates soon. There's a 90-something% chance that they're going to cut rates in September, and that's going to be the savior everybody needs for the housing market. No, it's not. That is the furthest away from the truth as you can possibly get. Here's a house that last sold in 2013 for $2.15 million, and then they listed it for sale back at the beginning of the year here in 2025 for $9.75 million. And then did a whopping $750,000 price cut, and now they're down to $8.9 million. Like I said, starting to resemble a lot like Florida over here. Start seeing price cuts that big, properties sitting on the market for that long, it's not looking good. Oh, and by the way, I'm walking down Lagoon Road here in Tiburon today. But back to this whole narrative that the Fed rate cuts are somehow going to lead to home mortgage payments becoming more affordable is just a straight up lie, guys, because as you know, or as you might not know, mortgage rates track the 10-year Treasury bond, okay? And right now, the 10-year bond is elevated since the start of the year, and it could remain high as investors grow hesitant to pile into long-term government bonds amid mounting deficits and heavy government borrowing. And also, a lot of investors are not convinced that the government has squashed inflation. We're seeing the latest inflation report showing the numbers going back up, and they're talking 90% chance of a rate cut. Well, what kind of investor is going to want to lock in a lackluster return when inflation is likely to go up? And then they say, well, even if the Fed cuts rates, then it's still not going to fix the main issue we have in the housing market, which of course they do not say is the prices, which really is the main issue. They say it's not going to fix the supply problem. Well, obviously, there must be plenty of supply out there if we even have so much of it that foreigners can even come here and afford to pay cash and turn it into a profitable investment. We must not have a supply shortage. And these people are buying in the Midwest, okay, where supply is below what it was before the pandemic still. And somehow they can still say that we have a supply shortage. And I can tell you firsthand, guys, I've dealt with a few of these foreign investors in my day selling real estate in Miami. They're not stupid. They know what they're looking for. They know what their budget is. They know what kind of property they want. They know what the numbers have to be in order to make it work. They don't just take a shot in the dark and just buy something. It's a very calculated thing that they do, just like investors here in the US. So if they're buying in the Midwest, then that means that they're able to make profits on these properties, and there must be enough choices available for them to actually still turn a profit and not have to overpay for properties and still have enough options that are good enough to have some sort of selection instead of just buy whatever. And that's why I want to talk about something that one of my viewers asked me about in a recent comment, which is vacant homes in America. This person says, Michael, can you track down this information? According to another YouTube channel I was watching, there are 15 million vacant homes in the USA. How can we determine if that's true? 15 million vacant homes is 3 times the number of homes most people are saying we need to build over the next 10 years. Also, there are 800,000 homeless people. This is morally outrageous, and he wants to know what is the truth. 15 million vacant homes slowly depreciating and falling into disrepair while you have 800,000 people on the street and politicians keep beating the drum of construction. We are rapidly becoming China. So what is the truth? Well, that actually is the truth. We do have 15 million vacant homes in America, which is a travesty, guys. In fact, this was a recent report that was done back in July from Realtor.com. Take a look at this infographic here. You can see the states that have the most homes sitting empty. And of course, Florida is number 5 on the list there with 15.2% of all homes sitting vacant. And Maine taking the number 1 spot with 21% of homes sitting empty. Now, keep in mind, a vacant home could be a second home for somebody. It could be a property that's in disrepair, that has been abandoned. It could be a property that is in the foreclosure process that's no longer inhabited. It could be a few different things. So it doesn't just mean that oh, these are all just empty homes that a bunch of rich people are sitting on. That is a good chunk of it, but it's not all of it. Now, according to the Lending Tree study that confirmed this 15 million number, the abundance of vacant homes, they say, is either a sign of oversupply or just declining demand. It's probably also a combination of both, if you ask me. And they do say here that this could be bad news for some homeowners because declining demand could drive prices down and lead to more affordability for renters. But this could also create a clearer path to homeownership for people who've been priced out of the market, assuming the foreigners don't come in here and buy everything up. And here's the crazy thing to think about, is this information comes from a 2023 Census Bureau survey. So that was already 2 years ago. So we don't actually even know how many vacant homes are in the US right now, 2 years later. It could be a little more, it could be less, but either way, it's still a lot. And the whole reason to bring this up is because exactly what this commenter said. You know, we have 800,000 people on the street, yet we have 15 million vacant homes. We have all these politicians and all these mainstream media news sources saying, oh, we just need to build more houses and that'll be the end of all of our troubles. We just need to keep building and then everything will be fine. But like I've been telling you on the channel all along, I've never changed my stance or opinion on this, is that we've never had a housing shortage. Throughout all these years that they've been claiming that we do, all we have is a shortage of homes available for sale. A lot of these homes that are sitting vacant are just not for sale. It's not that they don't exist, they're just not on the market for sale. And of course, you can't force people to sell their house. And when it comes to abandoned property in blighted neighborhoods, a lot of people just look the other way. They don't want to live over there. Nobody wants to move into an old abandoned neighborhood and fix up a house when the rest of the area is dilapidated. It takes a village to come in and move in the whole neighborhood and reinvigorate the entire area. So the point is that the problem is more nuanced than they want you to believe, because building more homes really isn't going to be the answer to these problems. And let's not forget that home builders are part of the economic engine, and government never wants the economic engine to slow down. They always want it speeding up. They always want debt being created. They always want things being built because that means money being spent and businesses happening and jobs being created. So they don't want the home building industry to ever take a hit or slow down. So it's really in their best interest to say, hey, home builders need to build more homes. Maybe we should give them tax credits. Maybe we should give them incentives in order to do so, because that's good for business, right? It increases GDP, which helps the politicians look good. But in reality, they should be shifting their focus into how can we create a scenario where we can have more of these 15 million vacant homes be listed on the market for sale? How can we rehab a bunch of these houses that have been sitting vacant for 10 years, or entire neighborhoods that are like that? Maybe even entire towns or cities in some cases. Just look at places like in the Detroit area or in West Virginia, where you have entire towns that are half vacant. But you know, those are hard problems to solve, and politicians, in case you haven't noticed, don't really like to solve hard problems. They just like to propose easy solutions that require more tax dollars and more spending of your hard-earned money. Now, one other thing I want to bring up is a story that was sent to me by one of my viewers about a man losing his home in Brooklyn over an unpaid water bill. And remember how I said earlier, a lot of foreigners like to buy in America because they think your house just can't be stolen from you from a corrupt government? Well, this story really pushes against that idea, because what happened to this guy is he had no idea that he had an unpaid water bill from 2019. And if he would have known about it, he says he would have paid it. So the city of Brooklyn has a practice where they sell their unpaid bills to a trust, which is a group of investors. And then those investors collect the money with interest. And when the balance wasn't paid on his home, the trust foreclosed on his $800,000 home and auctioned it off. The city and the trust say that they delivered numerous warning notices. This guy says he never received them, and he lives on the top floor of his home, and he rents out the bottom 2 apartments to other families. It's like a multi-family place, and he's doing the smart thing. You know, he's letting his tenants pay for his home. So now local lawmakers are calling for an official investigation into what happened. And they're supposed to be crafting new legislation that would improve trust and foreclosure notifications and prevent owners from losing homes over unpaid water bills in the first place. It's already too late for this guy. He already lost his home to an unpaid water bill. And of course, it's in New York, where all kinds of unjust things like this happen on a regular basis. And that just goes to show you, because of something that the local government did, right? The water department is run by the local government in Brooklyn, and they just say, oh, we didn't hear from this guy. No attempt to try to go over there and actually talk to him or figure out what's going on. No, we'll just send him to a trust who's basically a big collections company. He'll have his home auctioned off. Nobody's got time to help one of our citizens. Whatever. So this story is proof that you can have your home stolen from you for ridiculous reasons in this country. Now, obviously, the guy didn't pay the bill. We didn't know he had a bill to pay. And because of all of the breakdown in communication and nobody bothering to even go over there and make sure this guy knows what's going to happen if he doesn't pay this bill, he ends up losing his home over it. And I'm sure a lot of foreign investors that buy real estate in America have no clue that things like this actually happen right here in America, because all they hear are the good stories about us and how free we are as Americans and how things like that just don't happen over here. These are third world country problems. Well, newsflash, these things happen here all the time, and it's something you do have to worry about no matter who you are buying real estate in America. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.